Hi, I'm Yi-Chia Chen, and my collaborators Arturo, Deza, and Talia Konkle said hi too. Our research question starts here. Look at this image. What do you feel looking at it? Many people find it tempting to want to zoom into the elephant. It just looks too tiny in that box. And what about this other example? This time the chick looks way too big. So if we make some size adjustment, now they look much better. So this seems that we have canonical view in size for things. Why is that? Where is the size preference coming from? This is our question in the study. And our goal is to tease apart two possible answers. On one hand, we have knowledge about the size of the chick, so when the view in size goes as expected in regard to our knowledge, the chick looks nicely small and our mind goes on smoothly. But when the perceptual signals are in conflict with our knowledge, the mismatch feels like an error, and it can thus trigger negative aesthetic experience. So knowledge could drive size preference in this way. But on the other hand, there are also visual features that are associated with object real-world size. For example, small things tend to be rounder than big things. If our mind is used to process visual features of a chick at a small view in size, a surprisingly large chick might create difficulty or disfluency in perception, which is known to cause negative aesthetic experiences. So our question is, which of this is true? Is size preferences caused by knowledge or perceptual processing? And to dissociate these two possibilities, what we need to do here is preventing knowledge access while keeping most of the perceptual process intact. How can this be done? Luckily, there is a special kind of stimuli that we can use, which is called text forms. So text form is a kind of scrambled images where you can move around the visual features within the local pooling regions through a texture synthesis algorithm, and it will preserve the core shape and the texture of the objects while render them unrecognizable. So with these text forms, we can keep the visual process of low to mid-level features intact without the knowledge access. And here are some example text forms we use in experiments, and here are what they look like before distortions. In the experiment, we simply ask if we can find similar size preferences for intact images and text forms. We did this in two steps. We first measure what people like in intact images, and then we test if that is what people like in text form as well. In the first part, we use a size adjustment task on intact images. The images were shown, and then people make adjustment until the image looks good to them. Simple task. And here's what they prefer. On the y-axis here is the canonical size, which is the size people picked. And unsurprisingly, we found a phenomenon introduced earlier where people like big things to be big and small things to be small. And then we took this canonical size measured here for each individual and each object and used it in the second part with a forced choice task. We give them a choice between different sizes of the same images. One of the images are always in the canonical size from the first part, and the other is a foil that is either in a bigger or smaller size. Half of the trials, both images are intact images, and the other half of the trials are text forms. Subjects simply picked which size they think looks better, and we measure how often they pick the canonical one over the foil. And on the y-axis here, we are plotting the percentage of trial picking the canonical size, and if you're randomly choosing between the two, it will lead to 50%. Let's first look at the intact images results. What we see here is that people do pick canonical size from the first part more often than trends. This means that there is a reliable size preference between the first and the second part of the experiment. But what is important here is actually what happened with text form trials. If knowledge is critical for size preferences, the unrecognizable text form should not have the same canonical size, and thus the choice should be at a chance level here. Let's see. Ta-da! They're not at chance. People still pick text forms in canonical size more often than the foil. So even when people can't recognize what they're looking at, they still show the same canonical size, which means that size preference exists without relying on size knowledge. So there must be some contribution from the visual features. And of course, in this era, and replication is essential, so we run the exact same experiment with a different set of images, and the results replicate closely. Cool beans. So what have we learned here? People still have object size preferences without accessing the knowledge about the objects, and this indicates that those visual features that are preserved in text forms can drive canonical size. So that's it. If you like a preprint, you can email any of us, and happy VVSS!